Spider's back! It's early in the morning, Sunday morning, August 5th, almost 9:20 in Halifax, and had more floods, believe it or not, like 100 millimeters of rain in like 10 hours or something. It's insane what's going on. Anyway, let's not talk about that. It's too depressing. This world we're living in is too depressing. Let's get on to my third session, which now I'm going to do because I want to do this session in particularly because of what Randy Ambrosi said at Touchdown Atlantic in an interview with Kate. I'll get into that in a second. I just want to apologize for like few errors I made in the last two sessions. I mean, things that come off my tongue. Andrew Harris, I meant to say Trevor Harris, you know. I got mixed up. Of course, Andrew Harris is playing in the Touchdown Atlantic, and Trevor Harris was the starting $550,000 quarterback that Saskatchewan signed that broke his leg, and he wasn't available. That's why the game in the Touchdown Atlantic game in St. Mary's wasn't as competitive. And I said Andrew Harris. I meant to say Trevor Harris. If he would have been there, I think the game would have went down to the wire, or actually Saskatchewan would have won because Toronto's offense was pretty bad. Okay, their defense won the game, special teams won the game. At Touchdown Atlantic in St. Mary's, and I ended by saying something about the Halifax Wanderers grounds, if they were to build something there. I mean, they combinate CFL football and CPL soccer, but there's so much. The politics there is unbelievable with Derek Martin, the owner of the CPL Halifax Wanderers team, with Mayor Savage and his radical leftist gang. That's not going to happen. And the configuration there is not very good at all. It's not enough room there. They'd have to tear down the buildings where the horses are, and the lawn bowling would have to go in the one end zone, and they'd have to reconfigure the whole Wanderers grounds, and then they could build a real CFL model stadium there, like Hamilton, and expandable to host a Grey Cup. It'd be a perfect location, but they're not going to do that. Instead, they're going to spend $110 million of our taxpayers' money, because that's what they do. They take our taxpayers' money and whatever political gain they can get, because they only get 3 to 4 to 5% of the vote, and they cater to those people to get the vote. And that's why the old Halifax Forum, that's basically a dump and falling down, right? They're going to spend $110 million to imagine, to refurbish that. Can you imagine? Are you hearing me right? And that money should be going to build a CFL model stadium. That's the type of city we have. That's the type of radical leftist, communist liberals we have in the city. Mayor Savage and his gang that's destroying our city with all their druggy tent cities all over the city, and druggies all in their intersections. Like I said in my last section, they're breaking into business, bringing business all over Halifax and in the homes, people's homes. It's unbelievable, and they're all drugged out of it, and they're giving them drugs, they're giving them cell phones and food. I found this from a authoritative person that knows everything that's going on, and tents, everything, and promoting this as homeless and blaming it on Kim Houston, who's a conservative premier. That's exactly what they're doing. That's their political agenda on this. Can you imagine? And destroying our beautiful city of Halifax. But I don't want to say any more on that, because again, that's very depressing, but it's true, and it's exactly what's going on in the city. So to think that that bunch of communists down there in City Hall, okay, are they going to build a CFL model stadium? No, they're against the CFL. They're against the CFL because all they do is play the, you know, I don't even say what they do. I think anybody intelligent would use both sides of brains and knows exactly what they're doing. And you know what, the CFL has to do it on their own with St. Mary's. And like I said earlier, St. Mary's is an issue because of the buildings, because the Exchange building they built off the cafeteria. On the main side, they could put a double-decker. They could have put 10,000 seats over there with a concourse and permanent washrooms, skyboxes, everything over there. Now there's no way they can do that. So it would be, yes, it would be a pop-up type of portable, modular type, and you know, they can stay 7,500 at Touchdown Atlantic on that side where they could have had 9,000. But they built that exchange off the cafeteria, and then on the other side, as you notice, it's all buildings. So they had the track and field would have to go, and the track and field the program could go to Dalhousie. They could share theirs, or there's other places in the city, or build a new 8-lane track field which the city could use as well, that St. Mary's could use. But the track itself would have to go if they have any chance of building anything there, like a modular type stadium for a CFL, portable one. But they'd have to have bucket seats, like I said. They'd have to have permanent washrooms. The infrastructure's there. There's plumbing already there, water, everything's there. But I don't know what the design of that would be. You'd have to really have a good architect, but you'd have to have the track. The 6-lane, which is 6 or 7-lane track, would have to be used to build up over the buildings on the side where there's only 1,000 seats, and on the main side, I don't know what exactly they could do there, but they had 75 makeshift stands there for 100 seats, 7,500 seats, and a makeshift stadium type with benches and so forth for Touchdown Atlantic. Now that's going to be coming down. That's going to be coming down. So I think you're going to hear a lot more. I know, like I was saying last session, that Derek Martin, in bed with the city of Halifax, Samir and his gang down there, his communists, they're going to announce in a couple months their little Mickey Mouse little 10,000 seat. But they're going to have bucket seats, and they're going to have a roof, and they have water, and they have permanent washrooms and concessions and so forth for the Wanderers grounds. This is probably going to cost about, like I was saying, about maybe 20-30 million, and then it's a pop-up type modular stadium, prefabricated, and then I've been told that in St. Mary's, if they do something there, it's going to be about 50 to 60 million. Which would be better, hopefully, than, it depends on, like I said, they get obstacles there to overcome. So it's too bad that exchange went in there, because they could have had an opportunity, because I think in Montreal, I think they built up over buildings. I'm not sure, at McGill, I'm not sure about that when they expanded it. But anyway, enough of that, 7 minutes of a rant on that, because this session, what I want to do is an important session, because I want to talk about what Randy Ambrosi said in an interview at Touchdown Atlantic at St. Mary's in Halifax on July 29th, which they didn't even show on TSN, other than it was online on TSN's site. So crazy. But he says the governors had a meeting and they want to concentrate. What they really need is better marketing. Well, they need better marketing, but that's not the problem. Okay, so here's the problem, okay? As you've noticed, okay, last night and the games before, like they had 12 field goals, I think, in a game last week. You imagine they had every game, like last night, the Tiger Cats and the Alouettes in Hamilton in the red zone, like same thing, not going for it on third down in the red zone, easy chip shot field goals that are non-eventful, that are boring, the fans are booing. There's my rule, Mr. Ambrosi and Mr. Dick now. I don't know if you'd be looking at me right now on this video clip on YouTube, but of my show, SPYDER S Red Zone Rule show. But I have some interesting news here to report too. After meeting Mr. Dick, that I noticed in the CFL Rules Committee. I'm just going to tell you in a second. But there's my rule, staring you right in the eye, Mr. Ambrosi, Mr. Dick. He's a VP of Football Operations for the CFL. I met at Touchdown Atlantic and had a 20-minute good man-to-man conversation, respectful conversation with him. There's my rule, staring you right in the eye, just like I told him. And Touchdown Atlantic, St. Mary's, is staring the CFL right in the eye, just waiting to be adopted. It's there every game. And it's a natural, and it's tailor-made for a CFL 3-down game of football. So what the CFL has to do, they have to adopt my CFL Red Zone Rule. The CFL, that's the only way they're going to attract more fans, and here's the other ways as well. And because the amount of empty seats throughout the CFL is, like Rob Peterson said, in my words, it's embarrassing. It's that, oh, there's the evidence of the job that Randy Ambrosie has done since Mark Cohen left, who was a great commissioner, probably the most popular and probably one of the best commissioners ever. He packed stadiums. They were full. They weren't like the CFL, like throughout the CFL, practically all empty, half empty or more stadiums. And he would never go on the one-year contracts. And that's another thing. That's another thing that has to go. So here's what has to happen for the CFL to fill the packed stadiums again, like when Mark Cohen was commissioner. And the key players, some continuity. And the one-year contracts have to go because they're a disaster, because even the quarterbacks can get out of their contract in 1 year and go to the NFL or go to another team to get more money. Same with all the players. That's why you have 30 to 40 players every year, free agents, that aren't committed to the CFL team because it's a non-committing league. CFL, it's unbelievable. Randy Ambrosie, he's in bed with the Canadian Players Association because he belonged to the Canadian Players. So she fought the CFL in court when they wanted to get rid of the Canadian ratio. That's another thing I need to talk about in a second. That needs to go. He's for the Canadian players, right? And Canadian players want the one-year contracts as much as Americans, because Canadian players want to go to the NFL as much as the American players, or even more. So they're behind the whole thing. So that has to go. The one-year contracts has to go. It's killing the CFL. And they've lost a lot of season ticket holders because of it. And because of the Canadian ratio. Because the Canadian ratio was supposed to reduce to 5. It actually went up to 8 from 7 in the starters. The Canadian starter ratio and the Canadian Canadian roster ratio needs to be abolished. Needs to go. And that's why there's so many injuries in the CFL. And that's why the quarterbacks are getting injured and out for the year, because they're not being protected. How can you be protected when you see these Canadian guaranteed O-linemen starting because of the Canadian ratio and their passport, have no business being on the field? They can't protect CFL quarterbacks. And there goes the play too. You can't execute any good plays because you're going to get killed because they're not good enough. You have to be able to recruit the best O-linemen to play in the CFL to protect the CFL quarterbacks and ownership investment of that start quarterback. And that has to change. And all these things, they're bad news. And also what has to change too is 4.5 hours of practice time. That's including travel and meetings. That has to be increased. And the Canadian Players Association, that dominate practically the Canadian Players Association, they control it. And with their handcuffing Canadian starter ratio and huge Canadian half the roster ratio that's guaranteed, okay, with the signature Canadian passport, this is what's destroying the CFL. All of this is destroying the CFL, and all this has to change. They have to practice longer. That's why there's so many injuries. They're not in shape enough. And the O-line, it's brutal. All the O-lines, even the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Claris is starting to get hit, sacked. The Canadian ratio, starting ratio, of now 8, not 7. Can you imagine? They increased it, made it worse. Has to go. Has to go. The Canadian ratio has to go. The CFL, if they're going to be a player, they're going to be out of business soon. You can't keep operating, the owners losing tens of millions of dollars every year with all these empty seats because it's a gate-driven league. So the Canadian, and they got this deal signed with the Canadian Players Association, and they're handcuffing, dictating Canadian starter ratio and Canadian guaranteed half the roster ratio for 7 years. Can you imagine that? They signed it for 7. So Randy Ambrosie, I can see why people say Randy Ambrosie's got to go, because I mean, under his watch, this is what's happened. This is what he's done to the league. And these are the results. You see the results. And I believe the TV ratings are exaggerated. I think Rob Van Stone is right. But these things have to happen. These things have to happen. They have to be changed. They have to be changed. They have to, the board of governors, the owners have to get together and put a halt in this and say, we're going to fold the league unless this changes. And this contract is void. These changes have to be made. You need my SPYDER CFL Red Summer Bowl, and it's obvious you need it. It's like Rob Van Stone said, they couldn't have wrote a better script for it in 2021. to prove why my CFL red zone rule should be made part of a CFL 3-down game. That's a natural and tailor-made for a CFL 3-down game, and a game changer and a real winner, which it is. And it will put butts in the seats, because the drama and excitement in the red zone will be phenomenal with my SPYDER CFL red zone rule. And you can check out my SPYDER CFL red zone rule page, and my last full presentation is on my SPYDER CFL red zone rule page, and the 10 key super features and benefits and advantages, justifiable advantages of adopting my CFL red zone rule, and the 18% guarantee, which would be unbelievable, guaranteeing 18% more touchdowns, 50 more touchdowns scored in the red zone at an average of 54.8%. And by the way, as in the fall, in the red zone, the defense kicks up because of the weather and so forth, and they score less touchdowns in the red zone in the fall. So my CFL red zone rule is needed big time, and it would make our game way more exciting, way more entertaining to watch, and you can take that to the bank, and that's the truth, the real truth. So that has to be implemented. My CFL red zone rule has to be implemented, and the Canadian ratio, both the starting and the huge guaranteed Canadian roster ratio, which is half of the CFL team, needs to go. And by the way, there's over 27 players down in the NFL now, top CFL, top Canadian football players that should be playing in the CFL. And that's another thing. They don't even go to the combine. And the CFL Canadian draft is a joke. It's not even watched, because I mean, they're not even committed. And the top picks, they don't even pick them because they're going to the NFL. Okay, so that, like Rick Campbell said, coach of BC Lions, he said that's like a whole team, CFL team. So he was against the Canadian ratio. And Ed Herbie, who's now not with the CFL, I remember him saying one time, I want to be able to pick my best old lineman to protect my star quarterback, my investment, my star quarterback. He says, I don't care if they're Japanese, green, blue, yellow. He says, I don't care what they are or where they're from, but I want to be able to decide myself to recruit them. And he's basically saying the Canadian ratio is stopping him, and it's got to go. And it needs to go. And it seriously needs to go. And the one-year contract seriously needs to go. It's destroying the CFL. And no wonder you can't buy a jersey. No wonder there's no people in the stands. No wonder people walked away. So Randy and Brosie, how can you say marketing is what it's like what's so important right now that they have to crank up? That's the most important thing, and that will take us over the top. Are you kidding me? What about like every other professional league, allowing the best available players to start and play at every position for an entire CFL game? What about that? That's not important, which you're ignoring, what everybody's ignoring. TSN panel, they don't talk about, they're not allowed to talk about. They're avoiding and dodging. That's the problem. One-year contracts are the problem. Easy chip shot field goals, non-eventful easy chip shot field goals in the red zone is the problem. More boring two-down football stops, okay, in the red zone, unless you're on the 1-yard line, okay? On third down, you don't even go for it, ever. Results in more boring, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals. That's the problem. That my CFL red zone rule will solve the problem, okay? We'll eliminate the two biggest killers and two biggest turnoffs of our CFL 3-down game in the red zone. Okay, my SPYDER CFL red zone will do that. How big is that? The hash mark rule is ridiculous. It's gimmicky. It's like the coach of the Montreal Alouettes, Mark Trestman, said, it's a little minor, little tweak, alteration that's not even necessary. And you notice more interceptions now. Okay, and like people hitting the upright still, like last night, the field goal, the narrow hash marks. Okay. And throwing even smaller little short passes, you know, and resulting in 2-and-outs. Like, come on, the hash mark rule, Randy and Brosie said, was going to make the CFL the greatest brand of football in the entire world. That's what he said that rule would do. It's a joke. The rule does nothing. But my CFL red zone rule will do, what it will do is unbelievable what it will do. Check out all the features, not only from the entertainment side, side, how innovative the rule is, and full of drama in the red zone, the excitement and entertainment it will create in the red zone in the CFL. Okay, with my SPYDER CFL red zone rule, but from the business side as well, what we'll do in merchandise sales and sponsorship tag sales in the red zone with my diagram. They can use graphics and use logos and so forth. It's a money maker. And in betting in the red zone, it would be phenomenal. It would be the biggest bet. Can you imagine betting in the red zone with SPYDER CFL red zone rule on third down, whether they're not going to score a touchdown, whether or not they're going to be stopped, whether they're not going to be forced outside the red zone? Even the CFL red zone will kick from the 42. If the CFL team still maintains possession of the ball on third down and is stopped, okay, they get my SPYDER CFL red zone rule kick, okay? That's a challenging kick. That could be a bet, but the bigger bets are in the red zone with my SPYDER CFL red zone rule. Huge, lucrative. I never went over that with Greg, Dick, but I think it's in my part of my presentation on the business side of it, okay? So it's all there, So this is what needs to happen in the CFL. If the CFL wants to be successful, wants to be a real player, and to compete, because they're competing with the NFL, they're competing with the NHL, Blue Jays. And Rod Peterson's right when he said, how comes the Blue Jays are getting big attendance and so forth? And the NHL and other league, and they weren't affected by the China virus, which it was by the not COVID. They won't say the China virus, but exactly what it was manufactured, Wuhan lab, deliberately, because they knew they couldn't beat Trump. That's why they did it, and they used it, and all the crooked judges were involved, and they changed all the laws, and that's why they don't think they can pull it off this time. That's why they're going after him, because he will win the land. Look at his rally, Trump's rally. Look at the people that go. You know, Biden couldn't get 20 people in a circle, right? Not even in jail. Not even prisoners will go to see him. Anyway, let's not talk about politics. Let's get off that, okay? Because it's so corrupt. It's so corrupt, and the media is so corrupt. But anyway, so here's a list. This is interesting because I only got so many minutes left. 6 minutes. Oh, sorry, 5 minutes. So here's what's interesting. But I covered a lot what I wanted to cover. Canadian Football League. You can go on. Okay, this is like the CFL site, and go to CFL Football League official playing rules, and go down to number 4, and you'll see the CFL Rules Committee. Okay, CFL Rules Committee, and CFL Rules Committee chairperson is Randy Ambrosi. So there you go. So Mr. Dick, like what you told me that you don't have a vote. Yes, it's a CFL Rules Committee, but Mr. Dick, okay. You're down there as a non-voting member, and your Chief Football Operations Officer, Greg Dick. And so I want to go over who's on it. So the commissioner is the chairperson, okay? So the members are basically coaches. Jason Moss, who's now the coach of the Montreal Alouettes. Bob Dice, who's now the coach of the Ottawa Redblacks. These are new additions, I believe. Ryan Didwitty, he's a new addition. He's a Toronto coach, Argonaut coach, of course, or Orlando. Starmeyer, I don't know how you pronounce his name. I'm close, I think. Hamilton Tiger Cat coach. Michael Shea, of course, Winnipeg Blue Bombers coach. Craig Dickinson, Saskatchewan Rough Rider coach. Dave Dickinson, Calgary Stampeders coach. Chris Jones, coach of the Edmonton Elks. It looks like it's all coaches. Rick Campbell, coach of BC Lions, and Brian Ramsey. He's a Canadian Players Association guy. Adam Big Hill, they have a player, I guess, because he belongs to the Canadian Players Association, and Jesse McInnes, he's a head of officials, I believe. Well, Derek Hackwood is the vice president of officiating. I think that's the name he mentioned. And I said he doesn't like me. It's not him. It's another person. I don't know if he's up here or not. I don't know if he's even there anymore. Yeah, Ryan Jensen, that guy. He's the guy that he's vice president for public. He's under Mr. Dick. I'm glad I didn't mention his name. I won't. I hope he doesn't watch this program then. Okay. So anyway, so Mr. Dick, you do play a big role. You don't have a vote, it looks like, but you play a big role. and so does Randy Ambrosi. So anyway, so I'm going to get I'm going to get the recap and summary of my presentation over to him again. And what I was thinking about last night to say on the set on the end of the show was this, and this is so important. And I'm going to say it to him. I said I'm going to say the reason Rob Vanstone and Farr and Lodgy and of course Steve Armitage, all three Canadian prominent sports figures in Canada and respected. The reason they endorsed my CFL Red Zone rule is because they genuinely showed respect for it, and they genuinely dug into it, and they read it all. My recap, my summary, my full presentation, to know all the features and benefits of my CFL Red Zone rule and the value of it. That's what they did. And Mr. Dick didn't even look at it. And I'm sure on the CFL Rules Committee, because there's no CFL Innovation Rules Committee, and I guess it wasn't formed, they never gave it the time of day. I don't think they even looked at it. If they did, they just pushed it aside. They never gave it time. They never dug into it at all because of jealousy and because of ego, because it's not their baby. And same with the CFL. It's not their baby. That's what happened. That's why they weren't interested. Mr. Dick and Mr. Ambrosi, actually, he was interested enough to take it, to try to present it to the CFL Innovation Rules Committee, and the CFL Rules Committee said that's where it would end up. But what I believe is true, and what Steve Armitage told me is true, is that it's not their baby, and they're jealous, and because of ego, and because if you compare with the hash mark rule, it just blows it out of the water. So this is what's taken place. This is what's happened. Although Randy Ambrosi hasn't told me that it's dead in the water, so I have an opportunity with Mr. Dick, and I'm going to see if he would be genuine and respectful enough to really dig into my role. And if I could get to one of those coaches, if I could get to one coach that would be genuine as well, respectful to my role, and would really dig into it, or two, I could have something happening really big for my CFL Red Zone rule. If I get one or two members on the CFL Rules Committee and Mr. Dick behind it, I think it would become a rally, and my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule would be made part of a CFL 3-down game of football. That's a winner, by the way.